The stories are heartbreaking. This was supposed to be an ordinary Tuesday morning. People traveling, going to work, to school, but it turned out to be far from ordinary. The first fatality to be identified, Adelma Marina Tapia Ruiz. She was a Peruvian who had been living in Brussels for 6 years. Adelma was 36 years old. She was at the airport with her twin daughters on her way to New York to visit relatives for Easter. Suddenly, a blast near the check-in counter. Her children and her husband had walked away. They survived. Adelma did not. Another victim was Leopold Hecht, a law student from Belgium. He was studying at the Université Saint-Louis and was killed during the metro station attack. Fellow students say his death was unjust. They described Hecht as both brilliant and kind. A third victim of yesterday's attack, Olivier Delespès. He died at the metro station in Brussels and worked for a government organization. He was on his morning commute through the Malbec metro station when that fateful explosion went off. This is also a story of the missing. 2 siblings from New York have not been heard from since the attack. Sasha and Alexander Pinskovsky were at the Brussels airport getting ready to fly home when the explosions happened. U.S. State Department officials tell CNN that approximately a dozen Americans were hurt in the Brussels attack and that several U.S. citizens are still unaccounted for. 21-year-old Bart Migom was on his way to Brussels airport on Tuesday for a trip to the United States. His girlfriend and his family have not heard from him since. His girlfriend says she calls his cell phone regularly, but there is still no answer. And in terms of the injured, professional basketball player Sebastian Bellin was seriously wounded in the attack. He was in line at the check-in desk during the explosions and is currently in intensive care. A group of American Mormon missionaries survived the blasts at the Brussels airport. One of those missionaries has a particularly gripping story. Mason Wells is 19 years old, and this was the 3rd terror attack he'd experienced. In 2013, Mason and his father were at the scene of the Boston Marathon bombings, and they were in the Paris area during the November terror attacks.
I think 2's enough for a lifetime now. I'm just dumbfounded, to be honest.
A CNN crew was at the Wells home when finally, after hours of waiting by the phone, hoping to hear their son's voice, the phone rang and Mason was on the other end.
Okay. And tell me about your head, honey.
It should be fine as well.
Mason, I'm going to catch a flight over to Paris.
What was it like to finally hear his voice?
It was amazing relief. Pure joy to hear Mason's voice, to know that he's alive, he's okay.
If you're concerned about loved ones in Brussels you haven't heard from, go to cnn.com/impact. Zain Asher, CNN, Atlanta.